Hi guys, welcome to another episode of CP4SA, your one-stop channel for all things career. As always, we try by all means to bring you professionals to tell you a little bit more about each career, and today is no different. We've got Ntokozo.
Hello.
How are you, man?
I'm alright, how are you?
I'm very good. It's really good to see you.
It's good to see you and it's good to be here.
Yeah, man. You know, when I was thinking about how to introduce you, you know, you're such a multi-dimensional person that I didn't think I could do you any justice. So
Okay.
I figured let me let you do it yourself. So do you just want to tell the guys at home who you are?
Sure. Well, my name is Ntokozo, as you've said.
Yep.
From a background point of view, I'm someone who was born in Alex. My formative years were all in Alex. I am Joburg, born and bred. I went to school in Alex. I did creche there. I did primary school in a school right next to Alex, and I did high school in Joburg as well. And then I went over to do my university at WITS, where I studied metallurgy and material science. And then from there, I worked, while studying, I was sponsored by a company called BHP at the time. It's a company that was in the country. They have, I think at the time they had coal and they had manganese operations, but I was part of the coal business unit. So I did a lot of that work with those guys in Mpumalanga and Middleburg, Woodbank. And then just before I graduated, I moved over to another organization, Anglo American, and those are the guys I'm with now. And I worked there as a metallurgist in the mining industry. So
Yeah.
more or less that's it.
That's great. Well, metallurgy. I think metallurgy is a word that gets used a lot these days.
Yeah.
And I think even my last shooting, I was speaking about a geometallurgist, which is basically a combination of me and you, right? But maybe break down a little bit. What exactly does a metallurgist do?
Well, there's two parts of it. So you have what they call extractive metallurgists, which is where I am. I'm involved in mineral processing in the mining industry, but there's also another wing of metallurgy called physical metallurgy. Those are people who are interested and involved in the material and characteristics of different material. Those are the guys you would find working at BMWs, working in research centers. Those are the guys who are trying to develop lighter, stronger materials to use for everyday life, whether it be cars, airplanes. Some of them also work with in the bio industry, like healthcare, implants as well. But it's all just material characteristics, materials based. Right?
Yeah.
Some metallurgists you'll find in the welding world. Some physical metallurgists, I think they do a lot of welding stuff. And I think that's a whole new world that I'm not familiar with. I work in extractive metallurgy in the mining industry, and my job is in the mining value chain. As soon as the miners get the ore from the ground and bring it to surface, it comes to someone like me who uses a lot of processes, a lot of physics, and who exploits the physical characteristics of that ore to extract valuables from it.
Yeah.
And depending on what's there, it informs what process you use to extract. But the common processes involve what you might find in concentrators, which is a lot of grinding for liberation of the ore, and then steps from there you involve milling, floating, and then that concentrate is something that is sent to smelters and refineries. And in smelting and refining, there you'll also find more steps that can be like leaching, some pyrometallurgy, some more solvent extraction. But depending on what's in your ore exactly, you use different unit processes to extract what's valuable up until you get to the final product.
Yeah, so it's really good that you explain that, because I think people don't get that when we talk about mining platinum or mining gold or mining iron ore, that's not the product that you come out with when you leave the mine. It's normally like
it's rock.
Yeah,
right? So from the mine,
different things together.
It's rock, and I'm not sure if miners understand what's in there. But it's all rock, and it's people like me who then extract the values from what's in there.
Yeah.
And depending on what the commodity is,
Yeah.
your flow sheet or the steps you use to extract will be different. I think by far platinum is one of the most complicated, platinum and copper.
Yeah.
But then the more bulks, like your coal, has fewer steps involved.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose coal and diamonds, what you see is what you get, right? If at most, well, something like diamonds, at most, all you gotta worry about is not breaking it when you separate it, and then of course how you polish it afterwards. But it's really interesting, and I think, you know, I personally am very biased, and I always love the mining industry because there's almost no career that we can speak about where I won't say there's a portion of our workforce that needs that sort of thing. Even the teacher, when we had the teacher here, I was telling him that, you know, we've got ABET within the mine, you know, which is adult-based education, and we hire teachers to teach people. So doctors as well, you would know, you know, health as well. So it's quite a broad industry, and it's really good that we find ourselves there.
Of course, man, and I think mining as an industry is one of the most resilient. I think we also play a very firm, proper role in the future of our world. So anyone who also talks green electricity, green power, green hydrogen, carbon neutrality, the metals and minerals we mine are enablers to that green future. And that's exciting to me. So with all, I think throughout time, throughout different revolutions, throughout different, I don't know, as the world changes, mining seems to always play a role in that.
Yeah. So look, I'm really excited to touch on, you know, some of your international exposure, you know, the time that you spent in Canada and so on. But I think before I jump into that, just as a last on the education front, what sort of individual would you say is best suited to work as a metallurgist? So what are the sort of qualities that you need to have?
Sure, I think that's tough. I think more so now, people have the ability to research any industry. You know, if you have access to the internet, I don't think there's any answers you can't find. And I also don't think a lot of it is, it may be personality based, but I really believe in passion. You know, I really believe in doing things that talk to you. It doesn't matter who you are. So in the industry, we find a whole host of different people. But what combines us is this purpose-led work that we do in the mining industry. But there are, like, systematically certain things that should be your strong points to be able to get into a STEM field like mining. You do need the maths, you do need the physics, you do need the critical thinking. And more so now in the later years, the softer / very important skills is something that you should also be aware of as well. I enjoy psychology. Like really, and because I think that helps me participate and interact with different teams. It helps me play a role in my particular team, and if there's someone looking towards me, I'm aware and hypersensitive around certain things that they go through or what I go through as well. But I think to get into the field, it's a STEM field. You need maths, you need the physics, you may need a bit of geology as well. But after that, I think you need the passion. I think it's an industry that remains labor intensive. It's an industry that remains a bit remote, especially if you want to go into the operations. And I think you're going to need a lot of resilience to get you through that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think from what you just spoke about, I'll elaborate a little bit on, you know, soft skills. I don't want to make the assumption that everyone understands exactly what that is. But I think what I've observed lately is that it's definitely important in any industry. I think everyone that's coming with a degree, the degree is proof that I've got the technical skills. And I mean, the personality and the soft skills, that's something that we can only observe as you work, right? And I mean, soft skills tie very closely to emotional quotient. You know, how do you interact with people? Do you throw tantrums? Are you understanding? And I think there's probably no industry now, unless you work as a loner, where all you need is a final product. There's no industry where you'll survive.
I think so, man, but maybe we're way more aware of it now.
It wasn't so important in the past.
I don't remember it being as important when I was starting out. And in my experience now, in that box of what you're talking about, where it all starts is just the knowing yourself. You know, so you need to be comfortable in your own skin. You need to spend some time with yourself. You need to understand how you react in certain situations. How are you when you're happy, stressed, frustrated when things are not going your way, when things are going your way. You need all of that, and then I believe you need to understand your story. You know, a lot of people find themselves in different environments that they're not familiar with, like me and Alex person finding myself in Toronto or something like that, and then people try to change who they are, and it never really works out. You know, so no one can be more you than you, anywhere. Yeah. So if you do have the opportunity, just spend some time with yourself, understand who you are. Before you want to lead another person, lead yourself. Have the discipline that you believe you need to have. You know what I mean? And then only can you try sort of impart that on other people.
Yeah. So I think my takeaway or my understanding it over the years has been IQ and technical skills make for a good employee, a very good employee. But when you introduce EQ as well, that's when you start speaking leadership and, you know, CEO material. Now, if you know how to take everyone along with you, that's amazing.
Hey man, and 2019, 2020, I think were the times where most companies were faced with that. You know, we became very empathetic as corporate SA or operations SA. You could not care about other people, you know, and also, man, you realize that people are dealing with a lot. You know, people are going through a lot as well. So I wouldn't say the technical stuff took a bit of a backseat, but it definitely became equalized with the human, the emotion. The really connecting with your peers, you know, and your colleagues. I mean, COVID was wild, man. You had, I would presume, like as a manager, you have to engage and deal with a teammate who's maybe 20, 21, 25, whatever, living alone. Doesn't have family in this city, in a 1-bedroom house or whatever. And then you have another colleague who has 4 kids, is the wife, making noise, and has to navigate all of that. Those are all your teammates. And before now, you were not hypersensitive to some of the struggles that those 2 different individuals go through, which are all equally important. But yeah, I mean, I think it was very interesting to go through COVID. It remains a period that has changed people's lives, companies' strategy, companies sort of what they place importance on, etc.
But I'm happy that it looks like we're taking a more, I guess, positive perspective, because in your own words just now, COVID was wild and not is wild. So that's it's an indication that, you know, we sort of seeing that we're going out of it. I don't think it's a case of leaving it behind, but it's a normal learning to live with it. That's
it's a different normal. And that's okay, right? I mean, COVID was also an accelerator to a lot of companies' digital strategies. Remote work was never really a thing, but now you can see the art of the possible with a lot of things. So
definitely one of the positives. But let's jump straight into Toronto.
No, man, I think, you know, before we get there, I don't want it to seem like that just happened overnight. You know, I never dwell on the sort of background and family circumstances that I come from. I think it's just never who I was. But it never takes away from my story, right? So just quickly, being born in Alex and having to go through that way of living and get to where I am now, I think is nothing but grace. You know, in my adulthood now, I own that journey. I think it was something that got me to where I am. It influenced my personality. It influenced my grit. It influenced how determined I am to do certain things. But it was not an easy thing. And townships in South Africa are just evidence of the complex history that we have as a country, and how spatial planning was, and who lives where, and what quality of life is afforded to certain people in certain places. But I come from there, you know, and I have to always give credit to my mom, who is a person who just never succumbed to that circumstance. She believed in education for her children. She was very firm about it, and I think now I'm happy that she gets to see that her being headstrong in us getting educated is reaping some rewards.
Yeah.
So Canada's not my first job.
Yeah.
Right. So as far as my introduction to the mining industry is concerned, I did say I was sponsored by a company called BHP, and then BHP and most mining companies have what they call vacation work or vac work, where students in the December holiday period get an opportunity to do some in-service training, co-op work, exposure to the real world. So you would go from November to Jan, where you work as a full-time employee, and you would do that in first, second, third, fourth year, right? So at BHP, I worked in coal, and I was exposed to coal quite a bit. And then after that, when I moved to Anglo, my first job, I worked in iron ore for Kumba Iron Ore, where I lived and worked in the Northern Cape quite a bit. And then from there, I think I worked up 2.5 years there, proper just in the plant, just trying to understand what's important in this beneficiation of iron ore. It was my foundational years, and people don't appreciate that period enough. That's the period in your life really where you've got this empty toolbox and you start filling it with tools and skills, and you ask as many questions as you can, you do as much overtime as you can, you do as lot of acting as you can, you really try to be exposed, and you, like a sponge, absorb as much as you can. And the Northern Cape was that for me, a brand new environment. I did say I'm Joburg born and bred, so being in Katu was just so different for me, like even the local language is different, the people are exposed to different things in their upbringing. It's just, but I did that for a bit, and then I moved back up and I went straight north. I did do some work for Platinum, Tabazimbi in the Mandabelt. In that period of my life, I was doing a lot of optimization work, a lot of modeling work, a lot of project work, and again, and a lot of capacity analysis work, right? And that was also just it's a different commodity. There's different levers to pull. There's different things that are important than there was there. It's a different group of people. It's a different community as well. But I enjoyed that, and it's only when the opportunity for Canada to come, I think I became someone who was suited for that opportunity, because I had a lot of background and I had done a lot of work in the operations in coal, in the operations in iron ore, and then doing a lot of highly technical modeling capacity simulation work in Platinum. So at the time when I moved over to Canada, I had worked across 3 commodities, and I had understood and contributed and added value in the beneficiation of those 3 sort of minerals in 3 different places. And I think then when that opportunity came, it was very easy for me to stand out as someone who's worth this opportunity to go abroad. And that's when I did. Right. So when I went abroad, it was.
So can I say it now? Are we going to?
Okay. Yeah.
Toronto. Now, but with that said,
it wasn't even Toronto at the time.
But I think with that said, there's no denying that it's 100%. Your background, your upbringing, that probably built you into the person that was worthy of the opportunity in the first place. And that's before someone says you're worthy. Right? I think, but this is a me thing. I really do believe in being competent. I just believe in that. I think it might be because maybe growing up and the people around me and where we were classified as people who are not competent, or people who were criminals, or people who couldn't think, or people who are alcoholics, or people, all sorts of things. So I think when I started seeing the world outside of Alex, and I started seeing the mining industry as a path that I want to contribute towards, I think competence was one of the things I told myself I will be.
and it's important to me.
Yeah.
Right? I believe in being competent. I believe in the rigor. I believe in things from first principles and understanding. Yeah. So when that opportunity came for Canada, I was like, yeah, of course I'm going.
Yeah.
Of course, you're right. I did the time though. I did. Right. So, and to show that it was a very good decision, I survived Canada.
Yeah.
I was able to contribute to the mining industry at a global scale on merit. And there is evidence of that contribution, and it is at the caliber of the people in North America.
Yeah.
Right, and you don't just get there you don't fluke your way to that.
Yeah.
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 That's what I think.
So tell us about Canada. I think touch on both, I guess, the technical requirements while you were there,
Yeah.
but also the social and life skills that you had to learn
Yeah.
being in a new environment.
Okay. Yeah, so I think I went there in 2017 for a few years. Technically, it was more of the same. Like a flow sheet is a flow sheet.
Yeah.
If you understand the beneficiation of whatever mineral or ore you're working with from first principles, you kind of understand over there. There's just some minor tweaks, right? So when I went to Canada, I was working for a company called De Beers. It's the same company that we have here.
Yeah.
Right? So this particular company has an operation, for example, in Messina, which has temperatures that go up to 40 degrees Celsius on average. But where I was in Canada, in a city called Yellowknife. But basically the mine was a remote mine, fly in, fly out, in the Arctic Circle. And our temperatures there were averaging minus 40, minus 50 in the winter. Right? So although you're mining the same thing, but because of the environment being different, there are certain things you'll do differently. But if you understand things from first principles, you can navigate that.
Let's just be thankful that you're not as skinny as I am, because
I know.
without that extra meat in the cold.
But it's not even about that. So here's the social thing that I was not aware of. Those people in those sub-zero temperatures, minus 50, minus 40 on average, they've got the clothes for it. They've got the cars for it. Our processing plant is completely enclosed, where in the processing plant, although outside can be minus 55 degrees, inside it can be room temperature in the summer, and maybe in the winter can be, I don't know, like minus 5 or something like that. Then you just have a normal,
which is good, right?
Yeah, then that's good. Yeah, then just have a hoodie and then you're out. All right, so yeah, I think those are some of the technical adjustments I may have made to make are related to the environment, and the fact that it was my first time working in what is called a fly-in, fly-out mine.
Yeah.
So a fly-in, fly-out mine is a remote mine with little or no road access to it. So literally what you have to do to get there is you fly there. And then those mines usually have campsites right next to them, where you would live there for the duration where you are on rotation working at the mine.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of shift work where you would fly to a particular mine. You could work what is called a 4 and 3 shift, where you go and you work there 4 days and then you off for 3 days.
Yeah.
Or you can do longer shift where you go work there for 2 weeks and then you are off for 2 weeks. So those are the rotations that they have there. I don't think South Africa has a lot of that. So that was new to me.
I suppose if you consider the work that we do on ships, like when we mine diamonds.
Yeah. So marine,
considered
the marine guys have that as well.
Yeah.
So then they use the helicopters. So I think the marine guys, the vessel stays on sea.
Yeah.
And then they use the helicopters to go in and out.
But I love how we talk about all of this nonchalantly, but it's just amazing, right?
It's crazy, man. And I think listen, man, I'm forever grateful for my mom's a prayer warrior, no doubt.
Yeah.
Right. So even just going through that, being someone who experiences that, I'm like, oh, what? But here's what traveling exposes you to. People do things differently there.
Yeah.
There's one thing I think I was very impressed about in Canada at that remote mine. It was called Gachakwe, so shout out to Gachakwe.
Yeah.
Best. Very lean teams. So breadth of responsibilities. People, and not a lot of hierarchy. You know, like it takes 1 or 2 layers and then you're at the top guy because there's not a lot of people. But surprisingly, what impressed me the most was not really like metallurgy related, but it was like how they deal with the supply chain. So in Canada, in those particular remote mines, there's a few in the Arctic Circle there. In a year, there is a period of about 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, where the snow it's cold enough and the snow is solid enough for you to build a road from the nearest city to there. But it's a window of about 4 to 6 weeks. Mines up there have 4 to 6 weeks to bring it 90% of their supplies for the year on the road. It's great. I've never experienced that.
Yeah.
And then these trucks work 24 hours for that 4 to 6 weeks, and we literally bring out all our supplies in. But then I think they spend most of the year just bringing the supplies closer.
Yeah.
So even if we buy things from China, Japan, or whatever, but they just come closer. They take a year to come closer, and then most of them are stationed in the nearest town, and then in 4 weeks.
Yeah, so fascinating, because that's the second time I hear about that scenario. The first time I heard about it, it was a guest on this platform who's in logistics, Vuma. And he was just talking about how, you know, as a person who's in logistics, having to work around that is like the ultimate test for how you transport things around.
I think so, but also for me, who was working as a metallurgist superintendent, like in that place, where I have to understand my processes and my systems well enough to
plan for the year, basically.
Plan for the year and inform those guys who like this is the stuff I'm gonna need, you know. And it can be really bad when you don't have that, when you don't understand your systems properly, your processes properly, your wear rates properly, your reliability properly, etc. Because in a place like that, that kind of mishap or misunderstanding can mean, for example, if there's a critical part failure that is not on cycle or fails somewhere down there during the year, when there's no road and there's no spare, the only way we can bring that thing in is a cargo plane, and that's hella expensive. You know, and then it's known with our
that's the guy
who just didn't do his things, and now we have to fly in an excavator, or you know what I mean, something like that. And the cargo, and also seeing a cargo plane is crazy. They're very, very big. You can fit a trucks in there, right? But then it's very expensive. So I was very impressed by how those guys understand their processes, systems, their wear rates, their reliability of certain things, and they plan for a year. And the logistics and supply chain of that place has a 4 to 6 week window where they bring everything in. Those guys, they on it, man.
Yeah, so I think we've done justice to, you know, touching on the more technical portion of your experience while in Canada. Do you maybe just want to touch on, from a personal perspective, what did it feel like to be away from home?
Canada was not my first time away from home. It started from when I was doing some back work in Middleburg, Woodbank, and then at Northern Cape, and some Tapazimbi, and only then I did Canada. Canada, however, was by far the most difficult time away from home that I've had. When there's a 9-hour time difference between you and your loved ones, and you in a place where you are in sub-zero temperatures in the northern Arctic, in a very unfamiliar place, and you're trying to navigate that space, who you are, you understanding that life at home is happening without you as well. I think it can be overwhelming, it can be difficult. But then it talks to certain coping mechanisms and skills that anyone can employ in that particular setting. Knowing yourself will forever be important. Knowing what your triggers are will forever be important. Also, I think embracing being away from home is what people don't do enough. You know, I did spend a few months, and it was a few months too long, trying to be who I was back home or in Alex, or trying to relate there, instead of just embracing my environment and where I was now. You know, but when I started embracing it and doing some skiing, some snowboarding, some fishing, some hiking, some just proper Canadian stuff, going to hockey games, etc. Then you start finding another dimension of who you are there, because you enjoy those things as well. Whether or not you're from Alex, hockey, all of a sudden you like it, right? And I think that was fine. But I think what people should always be hypersensitive and aware of is just their triggers. If loneliness triggers you, if you start feeling depressed, if you've got attachment issues, etc. At least understanding and being aware of those is the first step. And you can cope, man. You can find a lot of coping mechanisms. You can find people to assist you to go through that journey.
Yeah.
And I think going through it, what's going to help you the most is feeling like it is worth it. And I think if you're not passionate about certain things like that, I'm not sure if you're going to make it.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that you bring that up, because I also remember, when you look at international or people working internationally, a lot of countries have like their own little community. So if you go to like the UK, you'll find a place where it's just South Africans because they've come together.
Yeah.
And I always ask myself, like, does that not limit your exposure to, a new area and immersing yourself in new experiences? Because essentially you go there and create your own little South Africa. Funny enough, actually, a few years back, and I'm gonna need correction here, I'm not sure if it was New Zealand or Australia. There was an article that came out about how the locals were not too happy with the South Africans because they were not, it was because they were not becoming a part, like they were not taking up the customs of the new country. They were building their own little village and basically making a new South Africa where they were. And I don't see how you fully experience the opportunity you have of being in a new place. Again, I can see how the other argument would be about holding on to your roots or traditions.
Yeah, man. I think so some people just it's how we are communal people.
Yeah.
And being in the diaspora wherever you are, and having those touch points where you relate to certain people, where, I mean, whether you are a black or an African anywhere around the world, understand what it is to have an African mother.
Yeah.
So those kind of relations, those kind of touch points, they help people kind of cope and survive. But to your point, I think we need to be more open.
Yeah.
And it goes the same with any opportunity that comes your way, any new exposure to anything that comes your way. I think if you're more open to it and you're doing it in good faith and you have the integrity, you'll surprise yourself.
Yeah.
You'll surprise yourself with what you think you can do and can't do, and also what just is drawn or comes towards you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, man, I think it's an understatement to say that your journey as a whole is just, inspiring. The things you've been able to do. But again, like I said, because of how multifaceted you are, I'm scared that I might be leaving something out that's very important that you want to get out.
No, it's not. I mean, this is a career podcast, and I won't be doing any young metallurgist or process or chemical engineer out there if I don't talk to some of the things that I did that sort of got me to where I am.
Let's do that, yeah.
So I think the first thing is, people don't say this enough, but if you are maybe going to be in the mining industry, and a mining industry like ours, at the core of it is operations. Spending time in the operations is very important. I think it just gives you a perspective that even in leadership you will use. I advocate for that.
Yeah. I think before you continue, essentially what you're saying, and I mean this is very important, whether it's metallurgy, geology, mining engineer, whatever the case is, when you're out in university studying and you're used to the Joburg life or varsity life, you need to mentally prepare to spend some time away in remote areas, because most of our mines are in remote areas. We don't have mines or big mines, within areas like Johannesburg or
that's where all the offices are, right? But if you like me and you really I want to shoot the lights out in this industry, I need to know what I'm talking about. I need and the grassroots or operations of mining for me needs to be a lived experience, proper, and that's what I advocate for. And even if I move away from that, but being in a space where I can talk to that will differentiate me. And that's why I advocate for it. But I think as a metallurgist or process engineer in mining, in whatever commodity you're working with, you need to understand a bit of your geology. Like if you're in platinum, you need to understand your UG2, your Plat-Reef or whatever, and how and why are those different. Right? You need to, even in iron ore, you need to understand a bit of your metallurgy. You need to understand how the metallurgy, or I mean how the geology and metallurgy of that particular commodity affects liberation, affects recovery, affects flotation, affects smelting and refining, etc.
Yeah.
You know, you need to know what's inside there and how it affects your final product.
Yeah.
Right? Even if it's theoretical, you must research it, you must know. And then you need to understand your flow sheet. You need to understand the different steps involved in getting to the final product. Even if it means, back then we used to do rotational sort of periods across the flow sheet, where it's been 2-3 months here, 2-3 months in this step, 2-3 months in this step, etc., until you get to the end. And once you go through the entire flow sheet, I think you have a very good appreciation and understanding of what it takes to get to the final product. Even if it means once you've gone through that, then you start focusing on one area or one section, and you become section engineer, section manager, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But you need to have gone through all of it. And then, even from another more macro point of view, you need to understand the ins and outs of you. So if you are in a concentrator, for example, where the steps in a concentrator is crushing, milling, floating, and out. But you need to understand a bit of the geomet, geology and mining, and what outputs come from their side that affect you. And if, again, you are in a concentrator, you need to understand what outputs that you have affect smelting.
Yeah.
For example, where you must know what content is acceptable or not acceptable, what mass pools are acceptable or not acceptable, etc. I think it's very important. It gives you an appreciation of the work that you do here and how it's affected by this guy and how it's affected by this guy, right? And then when you are here, which is maybe let's talk concentrating, I think you just need the technical rigor will save you. I don't think you should try fluke your way into being a senior leader or anything like that. I really believe in rigor. I really believe in knowing what you're talking about. You know what I mean? And for that, you need to spend time with it. Spend time with the material. Spend time with the ore. Ask the questions. And I think that will, and that's for any metallurgist or process engineer in any field.
Yeah.
I think you can, if you do that, you'll be fine. Because that's how we think. I think we're more process inclined. We think in different flow sheets. We think in there's an in, and then there's something that happens in a box or reaction, and then there's different outs. But then you start looking at where the outs go, and they go into another system or another unit process. Something happens to them, and there's another in and out.
Yeah.
And I think if you think like that, you'll be good. And then that's only one of it.
Yeah.
Then you talk to the social, the emotional intelligence, the EQ, IQ part of it as well.
Yeah, man. I think everything you've said extremely valuable.
It's important.
My takeaway from what you're saying, as well as my takeaway from pretty much everyone that I've had sit where you're sitting, is always, there is no instant gratification. You've got to put in the time. You've got to put in the effort. And I think even more so when the time comes and you actually achieve something, it even feels more like, I think I love the way when you speak about how when the opportunities came, it felt right. Like you put in the time, so you earned it. It wasn't
I'm very good at my job.
Yeah.
But I am. But I put in more effort than most.
Yeah.
There's very few people who could outwork me.
Yeah.
Right. But even just to add to that, if as a young black society, I think we have more to prove. A lot of the time we were very unseen. A lot of the time we were told we couldn't do certain things, even on a global scale like you and I have.
Yeah.
So we owe it to people who also came before us, who, when I say we are their wildest dreams, there's members in my family who it blows their mind what we've been able to achieve. All right? Because for them it was just something that's not possible.
Yeah.
And that's very sad. But it also is the reality given the complex history that we have. So you do owe it to the black community to be excellent.
Yeah.
You do owe it again to the black community to then open doors for other people who are coming after you.
Definitely.
I mean, I don't believe you can't be this working professional shooting the lights out, but you have a cousin who's not passing the trick. Why don't you help your cousin to pass matric?
Yeah.
Why don't you help your cousin and help them learn? It's not about them copying you. It's about them understanding how they learn or how they study. But you can do that.
Yeah.
And then when you work somewhere, you've got some resources that you can help certain people as well. So that's why I think we should be doing what we do. It's first to make it clear, crystal clear that black people are excellent and very resilient as a people and very capable of a lot of things that they said we couldn't do.
Yeah.
And then because we all come from maybe families who were not allowed to do certain things, you need to go back and help.
Yeah. I couldn't have closed out this episode any better myself. So I think I'll let Ntokozo have the final word with that last segment there. Yeah. But thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one. Peace.
Bye.